And we
Yeah.
back just
What's
like that.
up? What's up? What's up? Woo! Man, I'm a little tired, but you know what? I got this, man. Just got through
Hey,
doing a
man.
little suicide intervention training today. Got day 2 tomorrow, but hey, I'm good, man. I wanted to be here to, talk with some peoples about some things real quick.
Man, I think you are showing what the grind actually looks like today. It don't stop, right? And
It don't stop. Don't
but
quit.
but like we said, we work hard, but we play harder, and we definitely played hard and had some fun together. We went out for Memorial Weekend, went out to Houston, and we had a great time. So that
It
was
was
a lot of
cool.
fun. And then we
It was
back,
cool.
and then we back in reality now. We out here
Yes.
grinding.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's what we do. That's what we do. So
So
yeah, what you got?
yeah, man, I don't want to keep the guests waiting, but man, I gotta do some housekeeping things. Is that cool with you, real quick?
Hey, knock it out.
Let's do it. So, yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to the Up to It Parenting Podcast, man. We are your hosts, Z and Jamal. He got Jay Give here. He feeling cool. He feeling cool.
Sometimes.
The cool thing about our podcast, man, is we're super interactive. We want to hear from you. And I don't know if you know this, Pop, but since we are hosted through Buzzsprout, we get a free number that people can text, and we get their messages. So if they want advice or they want to hear a certain topic, man, all you gotta do is call us or text us. Sorry, don't call us. Don't call this number. Text us at 904-867-4466. Again, that is 904-867-4466. For those that are not watching but are listening, wherever you listen to your podcast, maybe it's Apple or Spotify or Podcasting Net, whatever you're listening, you can text us again at 904-867-4466.
904-867.
Yeah, I feel like a radio host, man. I'm
Exactly.
feeling, but Pop, yo, yeah, you said let's talk about it, and I want to give people some background because we just dropped. Some people, I call it maybe the most personal podcast I've ever dropped in my life, and it's out there on the internet for everybody to listen to and consume, and I was really nervous talking about this topic and bringing it to light for our viewers and people that are listening, and for even those that are not our viewers that are just scrolling and see this black skin dude coming on their screen talking about, pornography. And before we get into it any further, we just want to advise people that are listening that this is going to be an explicit episode. I'll say more direct episode about pornography. So if you're not in the mindset yet to talk about that, or you don't know where you stand with that, I encourage you to stay and listen. But if you're not ready, man, we're not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to hear. So this is your time to turn off the podcast and maybe rejoin us in future episodes. Pop, you got anything to add to that before I continue?
No, it makes sense. Yep. Just a warning. Just a warning.
For sure. So I posted this thing about pornography and how I believed I was addicted to pornography starting at 11 years old. And, Pop doing what Pop does best, checks in on me, right? That's what you do, man. And you and Mom always made it a point to check in when certain things have dropped, or just checking on me even in my adult life now. And we had a real conversation yesterday. And I think you gave me some enlightenment. And I think maybe I made a mistake with trying to, like a lot of young people do, diagnose themselves, right? I think we hear a lot of youth and people today try to diagnose themselves with certain things without going through the direct process and procedures. So I want you to share with the viewers, what was your take? And for those that haven't listened to that podcast, go ahead and stop this one. Listen to the other one that's dropped before this one. I would recommend fast forwarding to the 60-minute mark, and that's where we really get into it. But now since you're back, Pop, tell me what you thought of the podcast. I don't know if you listened to the whole series, the whole podcast episode, or just that one clip. But
I didn't get an opportunity to listen to the whole thing. I saw what dropped and was like, I was like, that's interesting, because through the years, you and I had talked about that topic at least twice, 2 to 3 times. And knowing that you were curious, at that young age. I remember there was a time when we had a late night conversation in the living room because you came out a little puzzled and wondering like, hey, am I gay because I like this or I don't like that or I want this or don't want that? And I had assumed that maybe you had bumped into some and or went looking for pornography. And so we ended up talking about it at that time. And then another time was about a couple of years ago. Again, we were just talking about pornography, and you reminded me about that conversation 'cause I totally forgot about it, to be honest. Um, and but one of the things when you dropped the podcast was I had to ask the question because you used the word addiction, and I was like, when we talk about addiction really, um you have to be careful in self-diagnosing yourself with certain things, because there's definitions for certain things, especially like addiction. And so what I shared with you was, I don't know if it was an addiction, but it was definitely maybe an obsession.
Mhm.
And um one of the main key things with addiction, when you use that word, and others can challenge me on this, but it's known that there has to be some type of negative impact from your use. And it normally deals with it interfering with your work, your school, your relationships, your personal goals, and you're not getting things done. So if we were to use an example of drugs, when somebody's addicted, they do anything and everything they can do to get that substance. I mean, they'll rob, steal, cheat, fight, almost even possibly kill. Not all the time, not all the time, but because they're trying to get that fix. So they'll disregard any responsibilities that they have. And I mean, it is the prime thing that they have to do, the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, and the last thing they have to do before they go to sleep at night. And so when I heard you talking about it, I was like, I don't know if you were addicted, because if you were addicted, I know I would have probably picked up on it,
Mhm.
because I would have noticed you not taking care of your business, not getting up in the morning and going to school, not wanting to hang out with your friends, not participating in, the clubs that you were in, and so you were handling your business. But I think, and that's why I wanted to check in on it with you, was to see if this was the better word, was you were obsessed and have been obsessed with
Mhm.
it, in that there may be some curiosity there, that keeps you engaged. It kept you engaged.
Mhm.
And when we talk about pornography, it can definitely lead to addiction. I mean, we talk about a gambler. That's the exact same thing that, what I just shared with you as far as negating responsibilities and things. There's a gentleman who talked about gambling. I think you had met him, Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's real good guy, and talks about his addiction with gambling and how, I mean, he was selling some of his parents, stuff. And when we think about pornography, and I guess I should say that I'm not saying that any 10-year-old or 12-year-old, any under the age of 18 should be engaged in pornography. But the we like to keep it 100 all the time, is that it is a place, unfortunately, that some young people go to use as a tool to learn from. And the danger with that, as many of you may know or not, is that it is a fantasy to a certain degree, how that pornography plays out really in life.
Mhm.
And so for a young person to be engaging in that content and thinking that that's how it's going to be or it should be, is dangerous, for multiple reasons. One is that individual's self-esteem, because when you look at pornography, there's a lot of things that are happening that you, then an individual watching the content, believes that you should be acting in that way or be able to have and do what they're doing. But you have to keep in mind that, one, these are, from a male standpoint or view or lens, is that these people get selected, because maybe they're, um, a little bit more endowed than others, or they're good on the camera, or whatever. and they're not the average per se. Now, can you find that content of average men doing this, that, and the other? Yes. I mean, if you drill deep enough, you can find that. Um, but then when you talk about sustaining in the bedroom, you have to recognize that, a lot of these actors are they are sometimes taking stimulants of some sort to have an erection that lasts longer. Um, they are also taking multiple cuts where they do a scene, pause, get fluffed up or whatever, and then go back to the cut and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that are happening that if a young man is looking at that saying, dang, I need to be like that, or I got it,
Mhm.
or dang, I'm not that size, and then it can begin to mess with your mental a lot. And so you have to be extremely careful with that. And I think the other part of it is how that then moves into relationships. Those that content that is seen by individuals then assume that that's how women and or men, because there are some content that vice versa, how
Mhm.
women treat men and things of that nature, that's how it is naturally, or um all the time, or that's what people want. And now again, keeping it 100, yes, there are some people who engage in those activities and like it that way, but it is not the majority. When you listen to those that have degrees in studying sex and marriage and things of that nature. And so you have to be really careful when engaging in this particular content. It is definitely something that is intriguing.
Mhm.
It is easy to get to. I think one of the things your mom and I had talked about was and especially after you and I read the anxious generation, is maybe having more restrictions on um, the laptop
Mhm.
um, than we did, not knowing what we didn't know, because it's kind of new to us and having kids and looking at
Mhm.
it, not knowing how deep one could get into certain content, because there's supposed to be um age rails and being able to get into that content, but we know it's very easy, right?
100%.
So I think when looking at it, yes, it can be damaging. But I think, from the days of time, sex has always been something that's there. And it's one of the things that we do talk with, um, I talk with some parents about, is not only is it important to talk to your young person about sex, drugs, and rock and roll early, but it's also important not to be scared of it. And we've had multiple conversations. I think where in listening to your clip is, again, that curiosity and that wanting to continue to know more, or maybe learn some possibly even learn some techniques people want to learn from there, like, oh
Mhm.
man, how to, because the other thing is, right, in music videos and music itself, and you hear that I should be this, or I should do that, or I should last this long, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how do I do that? And you end up watching this content to be like, okay, oh, that's how you do it. And well, not necessarily, because again, they're doing cuts, it's clips and things of that nature. So I think just being careful with understanding the definition between obsession and addiction, and if it's beginning to interfere with your day-to-day life, you need to take a look at that. Now, even with the obsession, it's just similar to somebody playing Xbox or PlayStation, 24/7. They may not be addicted, but that obsession can definitely get in the way of maybe their relationships with their parents, because they're not going out to dinner or family events. And so you definitely, it's a fine line, but I think you have to be mindful, and parents need to be talking with their youth about it. I wasn't aware that you were continuing to watch that.
Mhm.
Um, but again, And then you have to ask yourself, at what point in time how is it affecting me? Is it
Mm,
making me a better person? Is it making me better in my relationships? Because to be honest, there are couples that engage in watching that together and feel like that's, good for them in their relationship and it works for them. But
mhm,
then there's others that are like, I don't want you watching that stuff. You think I'm like her and you want
mhm.
me to do everything that they're doing and I ain't doing none of that stuff. And then you're like, what? You should be doing it like this, that, and the other. And it's like, what's
Right.
going on? So then it causes tension, right?
Mhm,
And then that's where you have to have the conversation between yourself and your significant other, girlfriend, fiance, wife, or whoever it may be, or and say, hey, this is how I'm looking at it. If it is impacting us negatively, then maybe I need to take a look at this. And do I really need it? Do I really want it? And if I really need it, then yeah, what do I do about that?
right.
And that's maybe talking to a counselor, or therapist, and digging more into it. Because one of the things, and I feel like I'm on a soapbox right now, but is that when people are engaging in it frequently and often, or maybe even obsessed or addicted, there's something that might be missing in their life
Mhm,
that they need. That's filling a void of some sort. Um, Again, this is on the spectrum of excessiveness or obsession and or addiction, right? There may be something that they're feeling. Other people might just be using it strictly for pure entertainment,
right.
and not watching 4 hours of it, or 6, and every day, and they're just like, oh,
Mm,
I like to do it on the weekend. um but that's something that I think an individual needs to decide for themselves. But as a person that's underage, under 18, parents need to be having the conversation with them about it. And so that's where I kind of stand. I know that I've had calls from parents. Because the other piece of it, I think you and I touched on this yesterday, was what type of content are you watching within that streaming service?
mm,
There's things that are going on with animals.
yeah.
There are things that are kind of degrading, and that may work for a minority of people out there. But for you to take an individual to take that on and then apply it as if though it's the norm, can definitely get them in trouble.
Mhm,
Um, I think that you just have to be extremely careful. But here's the other thing too that's interesting to me. I've always said this, and I think it definitely, parents don't talk with their kids as they're coming up about sex.
mm,
We did, but there still might have been more curiosity, which makes sense to a certain degree. But they want to know how to do things, and it's hard to talk to their parents about it. So where do I go? And then sometimes they go to their friends, but their friends only know what they know. um you know and it's dangerous because they're not getting the real information. And it's embarrassing for parents to talk about sex. But here's the thing that I was going to say earlier, sorry, is that a lot of sometimes I think a little bit weird, but I've been in the mall sometimes back in the day when malls were a hitting thing, and I was doing my counseling therapy work stuff, and I'm sitting and I'm looking around, and I just had this weird thought, like, man, there's all these people in here with kids, um and the majority of these people in here have sex, but you know what? We don't talk about it.
mm, mhm,
It's taboo. It's so how are young people supposed to learn when they're curious if nobody's going to talk to them about it? Where are they supposed to get the information from? So they go to their friends who don't know anything because they're just as old as they are, and wondering about wet dreams, and
mhm.
why do I have an erection when
Repo,
I'm
yeah.
when I'm walking in front of the
Mhm,
class at freaking 11 o'clock in the morning? Like, I'm not even thinking about anything, right?
right.
Or the development of women and how that's happening in class, and you're like, ooh, why do I like that? And why don't I not like, who do they talk
Mhm,
to about? It's just like this thing that we leave to young people to guess,
right.
because parents just don't talk about it. And so I think it's something that we do need to talk about. I do think it's something that definitely one needs to take a look at and say, like you did, um, and say, okay, is this more than what it was when I started, or is it becoming something that is out of hand? Am I bored?
Mhm.
I don't know what to do at night now. Oh,
Right.
let me just hit this website real quick. Da, 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 right,
Mhm.
instead of playing PlayStation or reading a book or going on a walk or playing a game or talking to your homeboys or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one of the things that I wanted to just talk about, being careful with self-identifying. If it is something that needs to be, even if it is an obsession, one may need to work on it.
Right.
Um, um, and if it is definitely an addiction, then it's something that you definitely want to work on also. And being young and being obsessed with that is something that definitely needs to be looked at, because it can damage your um self-esteem,
Mhm.
and it can also damage the opportunity for relationships with other people.
I
So
agree. I think there's as you were speaking, we were definitely keeping it like in broader terms and universal, right? For parents to understand this and for youth who may be listening to this with their parents, which is awesome. I applaud you guys for sitting through an awkward conversations. I have many of them with my pops in the car, and we're playing this stuff is not easy to talk about. And man, I've kept this obsession to myself for a while, man. I mean, over a decade. You hear it in the previous podcast. But Pop, like, how does when you listen to that and knowing the relationship that me and you have, and that I hid this from you for as long as I did and not feel comfortable enough to talk about it, how did that make you feel as a parent, as somebody who I look up to? Like, how did that make you feel?
I think it made me feel what's the word, that was unfortunate that you couldn't share that aspect when we shared so many different things. But I then also know that, we're still human beings and concerned about judgment and feeling ashamed about it. And So I understand that piece, but I think, yeah, as a parent who we have an open relationship, I mean, I also know that that happens.
Mhm.
Um, as much as our relationship is strong, in my opinion, there's still things that are going to be hard to come and talk to your dad about. I mean, I know our relationship has changed because I'm still your dad, but we become more friends, and then I'm an advisor more so than the one needing to raise you still to a certain degree.
Mhm.
Because you're an adult, you get to make your own choices and your own decisions. Um, so it's a little like, why couldn't he share this one, right?
Right.
After all that we've been through. But I get it. I also get it.
Yeah.
Even with my dad, who I thought we were pretty close, just certain things, you're just like, eh. And that's why I say, and we've said, you got to also have that other caring adult in your life, and or best friends, who you can talk to the stuff with about. Because
Mhm.
I mean, I can't be your all, and my best friends can't be my all. And so you need sometimes these different groups of folks in your life, especially as young people, caring adults, who, if you don't feel comfortable going to your parents, you can go to this person
Mhm.
and learn. And again, I think part of the reason of, and tell me if I'm wrong, is, and you not sharing, is, I mean, it's a heavy topic and it's a little bit taboo, because it's, well, wait a minute, I know he thinks that that's probably dirty, and I don't want him thinking that I'm dirty. And all those things go through a person's mind when they're dealing with trying to make a decision and how it might be impacting others. But so I was a little um uh disappointed that it couldn't have been brought to light. But then there's some things you just got to go through yourself, and I think that's even with, when we talk about mental health,
Right.
there's some things that I'm not going to be able to help with everything. And so
Mhm.
there's some things you got to do on your own, and learn from it. And I'm gonna be there like I am now to say, hey, let's figure it out. I got your back, And when I say figure it out, if it's something you got to work on, you got to work on.
Right.
If you choose to. If it starts getting in the way of your productivity, and you being an upstanding person in our world and society, then I'm definitely going to intervene at some point. But
Mhm.
that's not the case in this particular situation. But that's kind of where I was with it. So it was heavy on my mind. And then I did question myself to say, hey, did I miss something?
Mhm.
Was there something like um and again, that's why I said I think it's more of an obsession and something to do
Right.
because you have a strong relationship with your fiance.
Mhm.
You have a strong relationship with your boys. You never were dissing them or didn't want to hang out. I think I said that at the beginning of the
Right.
podcast. But that's where what I felt. So yeah, thanks for asking. And
No, I think that that's helpful for parents to understand too, right? And I think reinforcing the idea of having another trusted caring adult in that person's life, and you can't be everything to everybody, right? I think that's so important to definitely reiterate during this podcast episode, and just to be fully transparent with you. I think the reason why, and you got it right. The reason why I didn't share it with you beforehand, or even while I was going through what I was going through, was because I was afraid of the judgment and how it might look. Because man, I'm doing positive work, right? Like, there's no way that this dude who knows all the signs and symptoms of addiction, or somebody who's having trouble, is not able to identify the signs and symptoms within himself to realize that he's using this medium, pornography, as a crutch to lean on, right? Or I like to say it was more of a coping skill, man. It was one of the things that I used when I was stressed, when I was overwhelmed, when I was bored. Like, this was something that made me feel good in that moment where I needed a time where I needed something to make me feel good. And that wasn't basketball. That wasn't hanging out with other people. That wasn't what else did I like to do? Drawing or painting. This was something else that gave me a huge dopamine rush that I loved. The feeling of and it wasn't only just pornography, right? It was masturbation as well. I mean, let's just keep it 100. I wasn't just watching it just to watch it. Like, I was doing stuff to it. And that feeling is was the feeling that I kept craving over and over again. When I first time I've ever did it, it was like, whoa, I want that feeling every day. Like, if I don't get that feeling naturally through something healthy or productive, well, I can always hit up this website, or I can always go to this account on Twitter and or Reddit. And I want to just talk to the adults, and I want you to chime in on that. But I want to talk to the adults and let you know that sometimes your youth are using social media as a gateway to pornography. And that's the truth. There should be no reason why a 12-year-old, 10-year-old has a Twitter, or what is now known as X, account, because they know what goes on those accounts. These are where porn stars are releasing free footage for them to consume and to watch. And then you have to subscribe to their OnlyFans. Or Reddit is another one where people are leaking these OnlyFans accounts for people to interact with, to watch, to consume. So and I like how you brought this up, Dad, today, where you talked about maybe me and Mom didn't know the extent of the accessibility of where it was at, because you didn't know what you didn't know at that time. But now we do know about what we
right.
know. And I want parents to really, and I had a conversation yesterday with this with somebody, but check your kid's phone, man. Check your child's phone to make sure that they're not being consumed by this kind of content. I agree that I think when you become, like, we should treat it like any other legal substance on this earth, right? Drugs and alcohol, or drugs and marijuana, or alcohol and marijuana. Just delay. Just wait. Yeah, they're going to be interested. Yeah, but that's up to you to have that conversation, and you should be empowered to have that conversation after listening to this podcast, to talk about it. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be weird. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's better now than later, right? It's better
Mhm.
now than later. So I wanted to give you pass back Mike back to you about just everything in
Yeah.
summary about what was just shared
No, I
on
think that
my
was a good. I
perspective.
think it was a good summary. It's just about recognizing that the tools that are out there, and again, a great book to read is anxious generation that really gets into it, and realizing that there is content that is out there that's easy to tap into, and just pay attention to how it's uh, may or may not be impacting your young person, from anything from politics, sex, drugs, rock and roll, wars that are happening. I mean, our youth have access to so many positive things, but things also that maybe they're not ready to process yet. And the internet and social media brings it to them quicker than they may be ready to handle. And so, if they are going to consume that information, then they need somebody to process that with.
Right.
And it's probably better for them to process it with somebody who's had some time on this earth and experience and knowledge and wisdom than with their friend who is just going through the exact same things. Um, yeah, so I think that's what I would say. I think it's a great topic. Um, I think families need to decide and talk. What's okay for them in their family and what's
Right.
not, and that's not for me to decide for somebody's household. Um, um, some people may want to ban it altogether, but um, again, that's another discussion to be had. Um, and so I would say, yeah, be mindful. Um, Try to be supportive when you can with anything that your young people are going through, and try to have open dialogue, and yeah, be there for them. So
I love it, man. That's a great way to end it, and I don't want to add anything more to it. But I will say, lastly, before we wrap up, a great app for people to use, man. If you're struggling with your mental health, whether you don't know how to talk about it, and it's like kind of like, man, I don't know where to get this out. I don't know what to do. I don't want to write it on pen and paper because I don't want it to get lost and all that stuff. Man, we have a great resource for you. The app is called Brighton. For those of you that are familiar with us and know about us, you know that we are partnered with Brighton. That's Brightn. It's a great app mental wellness tool that you can use, you as a parent and you as a youth, you can use together to also have a connection and talk about each other's entries or what your check-in was like today and how you're feeling, and have just a conversation around that. It's a great conversation starter. It's a great way to keep your family close together and having these tough conversations so that you can have strong connections. Again, if you wanted that app, you can download it today at the App Store. It's called Brighton, Brightn. And lastly, as we get up out of here, man, I just want to say y'all showed a lot of love, man. I was super nervous dropping that podcast. Definitely, again, one of the most vulnerable things I've ever dropped for the internet and the world to see. And man, the words of encouragement that I've been getting has been amazing. And I want to let you know again, I made a mistake. I'm not. It wasn't an addiction. It was definitely an obsession. And I want you to take my mistake and learn from it, and let you know that you don't have to self-diagnose everything you're going through. And the fact that you probably should see a trusted professional when you're talking about topics like this. And that was a mistake that I made. Thank God my dad caught it and was like, hey, man, I just want to check in real quick because it helps me. Now it's like, I don't know if it feels less like a burden, or if it feels, I don't know what it feels like, but it feels a little bit less heavy. I feel like in my head, in my mind. But say that to say, man, thank you for your words of encouragement, man. If you've been listening to the podcast and you're like, man, I love these guys. I just don't have Instagram or I don't have Facebook, man, but you have text messaging. You can always text us your thoughts, your opinions, leave comments down about the podcast, and you can text us again. Our number is 904-867-4466. Again, for those listening, that number is 904-867-4466. And we would love to be able to help you out and give you some advice, or we would love just to pop you up your text message and give you some love, man, for just watching and sticking with us. Dad, I did some research today, and I think this is going to be our 65th episode of the Up to It Parenting Podcast, man. So we're almost at that 100 mark. I don't know. Me and you got to sit and strategize when we hit 100, what we're going to do. Should we give away something for the people that were there from the beginning? Should we have a big like live party thing that we could do with karaoke? I don't know, man. That's me and you that we
yes,
can
sir.
talk
Yes,
about.
sir.
But with that being said, man, again, we love each and every one of you. Thank you for tapping in and showing your love and hanging out with us for the last 35 minutes. We're going to get out of here. We hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, peace.
Peace.